Welcome to another Christ Over Coffee. I'm Pastor Chris Byers of St. John's Lutheran Church in beautiful Gillett, Wisconsin. Glad to be with you one more time here as we continue on. We're going through the Bible. We're going through Genesis. We've gone through the first 21 chapters of Genesis. And now we're going to enter into the 22nd chapter of Genesis. The version that I'm going to read from is my New American Standard Bible from the 1995 edition of that. We're going to go through and just, as I've been doing here, read through verse. We did get through the 26th chapter of Genesis in our class on Monday evening. If you're ever able to join us from at 6 o'clock until 7:30, we do have the class. We go through much of this, but we also have some other discussion that goes on. And if you're in the Gillett, if you're able to come and join us in Gillett for that, 6 p.m. on Monday evenings, you're always welcome. It's a wonderful time to be had. It's a great class. It's always good to come together, go through the Bible. It's even better to go through the Bible with other brothers and sisters in the faith. So let us begin with the 22nd chapter. We're going through all of this where there's been some issues between Abimelech and there's an agreement made with Abimelech and Abraham that they'll work with one another in Beersheba, which is where Abraham's at this time. It starts out the 22nd verse. Now it came about after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you. Now this is a strange way of doing it because one, we know the God we worship, the one true God, doesn't do the sacrifice of humans. But here is a test that's being put out there. And this is to test Abraham. One, is he going to believe and trust in God and God's providence for the promise that he had given? Also, we look here, and it's a reminder here that Isaac is, it says, only son. Well, we know that Abraham has Ishmael. But see, Isaac is the only son with Sarah, and he is the one of promise. He's the one that God has set apart. He is the child of promise, which all will be blessed, and Isaac will be the one through whom the line of Abraham will be given, the blessing through the line of Abraham will be fulfilled. So this is really a big step for him. Also, the reality of this is it wasn't uncommon in other cultures at the time of Abraham, and we know throughout ancient history that it's not uncommon for families, for parents to sacrifice their children to appease the gods for blessing and the like. But this is not something that God calls us to as his people. We aren't called to human sacrifice. There's no call for that. In fact, God is opposed to this. But here is a test. Abraham arose early in the morning and saddled his donkey and took 2 of his young men with him and Isaac his son. And he split wood for the burnt offering and arose and went to the place of which God had told him. On the 3rd day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place from a distance. Now, realize also Isaac is not a little boy. He is a young man. He's probably a teenager. So he is very capable, as we will find here. All right. And on the 3rd day, Abraham raised his eyes and saw the place from a distance. And Abraham said to his young men, Stay here with the donkey, and I and the lad will go yonder, and we will worship and return to you. And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son, and he took in his hand the fire and the knife. So the 2 of them walked together. Now, here we look at, this is that precursor pointing as Isaac is kind of like pointing to the sacrifice God is going to make through Jesus. So we have, this would be that precursor to the Christ, kind of helping, giving that image. In fact, even the laying the wood on Isaac, one could think of the other, the sacrifices. Jesus is forced to, they lay the wood of the cross on Jesus' shoulders to carry it to the place, to Golgotha, for the sacrifice. So we see these connections coming together. We see when we know the whole of the Scripture, we can see pieces that are starting to line up in this. But we know here we have, they're going up. Isaac is very capable because, he can carry all the wood, and so he's not some little child. But here he is faithfully following his father. And Isaac spoke to Abraham his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am, my son." And he said, "Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" So Isaac knows something's up here. He also has to be aware of some of the other cultural issues there. There might be part of him going, all right, is this for me? There's some unknown for him that he's wondering. He's probably has some questions in his mind, but he's also faithful to his father. He's trusting of his father and knows there's a reason for all things. So he sees his father as being one whom he can definitely trust. And Abraham said, "God will provide. We will see. God is going to bring whatever. We will see what God will have for himself, the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." So the two of them walked together. Then they came to the place which God had told him, and Abraham built the altar there and arranged the wood, and he bound his son Isaac. Now Isaac could have easily probably fought against this, but there was a part of Isaac that was faithful and trusting in his father, and he was trusting in God. If this was God's will, he was willing to turn it, because Abraham was the good teacher. He was the father. He made mistakes and errors, of course. We know what the treachery of Abraham, constantly saying that Sarah is his sister, and there with the fear there. But we also know the faithfulness of Abraham, and God is also very faithful to him, right? So, and Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. Okay, so he's getting ready to do the sacrifice, but the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham." And he said, Abraham says, "Here I am." And he said, and the angel says, "Do not stretch out your hand against the lad and do nothing to him, for now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your only son, from me." Now again, this is the unique son. He's saying, okay, you trust me so much that you would give up everything, trusting that I will fulfill the promise I've made to you. Because we have to realize and remember in this that Isaac is the child of promise. For Abraham to kill Isaac, which God has said will be the child which will carry on his line, will be the blessing. So here Abraham is having to strongly trust, fully trust in what is going on, what God is doing. He's laying it all before God, saying, okay, if I take my son's life, you're going to do something. You're going to give him life back. I have to trust that, or you're going to fulfill through him. You're going to make it work, God. He has that righteous fear we're called to have, that Martin Luther reminds us when he wrote the small catechism. We're to fear and love. We're to fear and love God. And they both go hand in hand. Fear, not fear like, oh, it's scary, but fear of like a child should have to their parent, their father. How we should veer, we should hold and trust in God in such a way that there's nothing we could ever hold back from him. There's nothing we can hide from God. And, all right. Then Abraham raised his eyes and looked. Now, it's not like he raised his eyes and looked and he had eyes behind his head. And behold, behind him, a ram caught in the thicket by his thorns. So he raised up his eyes and he probably looked around. God has provided. He's provided this ram. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the place of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, "The Lord will provide." as it is said to this day, in the mount of the Lord it will be provided. So this is saying he's trusting God is the provider of all things. He entrusts everything to God. And the same we point. We are called as followers of the one true God to entrust all things to God, to not become afraid of anything we see in the world, but to trust that He is going to provide. And He will provide for us everything we need. So, then the angel of the Lord called Abraham a second time from heaven, and behold, by myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this thing, and have not withheld your son, your only son. Indeed, I will greatly bless you, and I will greatly multiply your seed, as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore. And your seed shall possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. So Abraham returned to his young men, and they arose and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham lived in Beersheba. Now it came about after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, Behold, Milcah also has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Jidlaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. These eight Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother. So he has 8 nephews, and they become important down the road also. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, also bore Tebah, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Maacah. All right. So we know Bethuel became the father of Rebekah. This is very important. It's the only one that's being, ding, ding, ding. This is the only female that's being named very strongly. But we also have God. It's being revealed to Abraham. Your brother has children, and they have children. And this will become important in a moment. So, now, we're moving on to the 23rd chapter. Now, Sarah lived 127 years. She lived a good long life. Abraham's now 137 years. These were the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, and in the land of Canaan. And Abraham went in to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Then Abraham rose from before his dead and spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner among you. Give me a burial site among you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying, Hear us, my lord. You are a mighty prince among us. Bury your dead in the choicest of our graves. None of us will refuse you his grave for burying your dead. So Abraham rose and bowed to the people of the land, the sons of Heth. And he spoke with them, saying, If it is your wish for me to bury my dead out of my sight, hear me and approach Ephron, the son of Zohar, for me, so that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which he owns, which is at the end of his field. For the full price let him give it to me in your presence for a burial site. Now Ephron was sitting among the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, even of all who went in at the gate of his city, saying, No, my lord, hear me, I give you the field, and I give you the cave that is in it. In the presence of the sons of my people I give it to you. Bury your dead. And Abraham bowed before the people of the land. And he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, If you will only please listen to me, I will give you the price of the field, accept it from me, that I may bury my dead there. Then Ephron answered Abraham, saying, My lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver? What is that between me and you? So bury your dead. Listen, there's a little bit of a sneakiness there. This is how much it's worth. But what is that? And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out for Ephron the silver which he had named, in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, commercial standard. So Ephron's field, which was in Machpelah, which faced Mamre, the field and cave which was in it, and all the trees which were in the field, that were within all the confines of its border, were deeded over to Abraham for a possession in the presence of the sons of Heth, before all who went in at the gate of his city. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, that is Hebron, in the land of Canaan. So the field and the cave that is in it were deeded over to Abraham for a burial site by the sons of Heth. So here we have a transaction agreement. Before they're trying to make it, let us gift it to you. So then Abraham would be beholden. See, remember the field that I gave you. But no. Abraham knew better. He knew also that these were not men that were following God. These were not people of God. They were in the land of Canaan, which was the promised land, promised Abraham, which would belong to all of Israel. This was what God had said, but they didn't understand or know that fully at this time. But also Abraham also didn't want to have them feel, he didn't want to be beholden to them in any way, shape, or form. So instead of putting himself into that type of relationship, he says, let me buy this from you. Now there's a transactional action where the land is truly deeded over because there is no gift, but it is purchased. So it is his land, whether the relationship between Ephron and anybody there stays positive or negative. There is a positive contractual deed to this land, which he now possesses. This is eternal possession for Abraham and his family also. So now we move forward, going into the 24th chapter. And when we think about this here, we remember now he's in a land that is not yet of the people of God. This is not yet fully Abraham's, though it's promised to Abraham. So now Abraham was old and advanced in age, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in every way. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his household, who had charge of all he owned, please place your hand under my thigh. This is make a contract with me. Place it under my hand. This is one that I may hold, or I may take your life, I may take your hand. You are now bound to this promise. Abraham said, he said, place your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and the God of earth, that you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I live. But you shall go to my country, where I've been born, where my people are, to my relatives, and take a wife for my son Isaac. Now we know he has this niece, this great niece that is there within the land, that Rebekah, and he knows this. And we know this will become more important, right? All right. And take a wife for my son Isaac. And the servant said to him, suppose the woman will not be willing to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land from where you came? Well, what if the woman's not willing to follow me here? You're making me make a promise, an oath. What if this won't happen? What if she says no? Then Abraham said to him, beware lest you take my son back there. Don't take him back there. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and who swore to me, saying, to your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you will take a wife for my son from there. All right, don't take him back there. God's already preparing this. He's let me know this is going to happen. Now, we know Abraham knows about Rebekah. So we know probably what he has in mind here, right? There's a reason things are foretold. There's some reason that we have names. They always have purpose. But if the woman is not willing, okay, I'm hearing you. You're doubting, but I'm going to answer your doubt. Then you will be free from this oath, only do not take my son back there. So the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master and swore to him concerning this matter. So he wouldn't make the promise until he had a way out, right? I don't know. I don't want to get caught up in this. If I fail, I want to make sure that I still get a reward, right? Then the servant took 10 camels from the camels of his master and set out with a variety of good things. So he comes with some great treasure, right? Of his master's in his hands, and he arose and went to Mesopotamia to the city of Nahor. So this is in the area of Ur, Chaldea. Nahor's there, the family is there. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at evening time, the time when women go out to draw water. Now, this is not like a short run. This is probably a few days' journey at least. And he's sitting there. It's time of the day when it's starting to cool, where they're going to be able to get the water, and it's not going to be so hot. And he said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show loving kindness to my master Abraham. All right. Be kind to my master. I'm going to pray this over to you. Behold, I am standing by this spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. All right. Sounds good so far. Now may it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar so that I may drink, and who answers, drink, and I will water your camels also. Okay, so not only is she to offer water to him, but offer water to the camels. She needs to do this. May she be the one whom thou hast appointed for thy servant Isaac, and by this I shall know that thou hast shown loving kindness to my master. So here he's saying a prayer, but there's some, you got to think, there's some testing in here. He's saying, okay, not only one of these girls, but one she has to offer to give me a drink, plus offer to water my camels. And it came about before he had finished speaking that, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her jar on her shoulder. And the girl was very beautiful, a virgin, and no man had had relations with her. And she went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Now this is to let us know the character of her. How would you know that? You know, we were kind of joking. She's wearing, it's got written on the jar, virgin, I'm the one, I'm chosen, daughter of Bethuel. No, but really, no, there had been things about her. She would have been dressed in a certain way to let people know that, one, she's a virgin and she's unmarried. So there, this would be this promise to her. And also, she was very pleasant to look at, is how she's understood. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. So he says, I'd like a drink. And she said, drink, my lord. And she quickly lowered her jar to her hand and gave him a drink. So he asked for a drink, she gave a drink. Now here's the second half of that test. Now when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw also for your camels until they have finished drinking. Now this is a big gift, because you have to think, camels, they drink a lot of water. So this wasn't just a little water, this was a lot of water for 10 camels. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran back to the well to draw, and she drew for all his camels. Meanwhile the man was gazing at her in silence, to know whether the Lord had made his journey successful or not. Then it came about, when the camels had finished drinking, that the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her wrists, weighing 10 shekels in gold. And he said, whose daughter are you? Please tell me. Is there room for us to lodge in your father's house? And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. Now he's getting a confirmation. This is truly a daughter of the family, of Abraham's family. So, and again she said, we have plenty of both straw and feed and room to lodge in. Then the man bowed low and worshipped the Lord, and he said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth toward my master. As for me, the Lord has guided me in the way to the house of my master's brothers. Then the girl ran and told her mother's household about these things. All right. Now Rebekah had a brother whose name was Laban, which we know it will become, if you've read through this, you're going to know he's an important figure later on. And Laban ran outside to the man at the spring. And it came about that when he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's wrists, and when he heard the words of Rebekah his sister, saying, This is what the man said to me, he went to the man. And behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. And Laban said, Come in, blessed of the Lord. Now he looks, there's much wealth here, there's potential. Why do you stand outside, since I have prepared the house and a place for the camels? So the man entered the house. Then Laban unloaded the camels, and he gave straw and feed to the camels, and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. But when food was set before him to eat, he said, I will not eat until I have told my business. And he said, Speak on. So he said, I am Abraham's servant, and the Lord has greatly blessed my master, so that he has become rich, and he has given him flocks and herds, and silver and gold, and servants, and maids, and camels, and donkeys. Now Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master in her old age, and he has given him all that he has. And my master made me swear, saying, You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose land I live. But you shall go to my father's house and to my relatives, and take a wife for my son. All right. And I said to my master, Suppose the woman does not follow me. And he said to me, The Lord before whom I have walked will send his angel with you to make your journey successful. And you will take a wife for my son from my relatives and from my father's house. And then you will be free from my oath when you come to my relatives. And if they do not give her to you, you will be free from my oath. So I came today to the spring and said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if now thou wilt make me my journey on which I go successful, behold, I am standing by the spring, and may it be that the maiden who comes out to draw water, and to whom I say, Please let me drink a little water from your jar, and she will say to me, You drink, and I will draw for your camels also. Let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son. So he's saying, May this woman, and this woman we know as Rebekah, before I had finished speaking in my heart, and behold, Rebekah came out with her jar on her shoulder, and went down to the spring and drew. And I said to her, Please let me drink. And she quickly lowered her jar from her shoulder and said, Drink, and I will water your camels also. So I drank, and she watered the camels also. Then I asked her, and she said, Whose daughter are you? And she said, The daughter of Bethuel, Nahor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. And I put the ring on her nose, and the bracelets on her wrist. And I bowed low, and worshipped the Lord, and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had guided me in the right way, to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. So we know with these gifts, there was some reason. There's a reason why it was put in her nose, why she was given the bangles. Because there was an intention that was put forward with that. And I bowed low and worshipped the Lord, and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who guided me in the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. So now, if you are going to deal kindly and truly with my master, tell me. If not, let me know, that I may turn to the right hand or the left. Then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, The matter comes from the Lord, so we cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. So Bethuel, the father, and the brother now have given that. Now, Bethuel, this has very little part in all of this, as we know, because Laban is the main one that is dealing here. because Laban is the important character which we will deal with in the future here. So, all right. And it came about when Abraham's servant heard their words, and he bowed himself to the ground before the Lord. And the servant brought out articles of silver and articles of gold and garments, and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave precious things to her brother and to her mother. Then he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night. When they arose in the morning, he said, "Send me away to my master." So he's like, "Let's go now. The business is done. Thank you. I got to get back." But her brother and her mother said, "Let the girl stay with us a few days. Say 10. Afterwards, she may go." Let her stay a little bit longer. We're not ready yet to say goodbye. And he said, "Do not delay me. Don't hold me back. Since the Lord has prospered my wife, send me away that I may go to my master." Let me go now. Don't try and hold me back. Don't try and stop me. Don't try and stop this from happening. Let's move forward. They said, "We will call the girl and consult her wishes." Then they called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." Thus they sent away their sister Rebekah and her nurse with Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, "May you, our sister, become thousands of 10,000s, and may your descendants possess the gate of those who hate them." Now, this is a repeated blessing that had been given back to Abraham. Now, here we see that this is where the blessing is going to come. Abraham had given this. They're going to be sitting in the gates of the enemies. The gates are significant because that is where all business dealings were. That is also the protection. That's the entrance into the city. You're watchful who you allow through the gates of your city because you don't want to allow people that are going to come in and invade or destroy your city. You don't want spies to come in. So you want to make sure that all the people and all the business, everything done there, you'll close the gates at night to protect from raiders, and you'll have people that'll be watching the gates. The gates is an important aspect in ancient culture. It's the place of protection, place of business, place where contracts are done, all of those things. If you're outside the gates, you're in exile, you're also in danger. There's no protection outside of the gates. In the gates, you are protected from all the things that are outside. Then Rebekah arose with her maids, and they mounted the camels and followed them back. Followed the man. So the servant took Rebekah and departed. Now Isaac had come from going to Beer Lahai Roi. Now remember, this is further back. This is where when and I know I was in the class here and I got confused between the two, and I always should look back here. But this is also this is the place where when Sarah was treating Hagar harshly, and Hagar ran from Sarah, and she fell in crying in the forest, in the woods, and all of that. And God came and said, the child that Ishmael will be a blessing. You'll name him Ishmael. Go back and deal with your maid. I will protect you. And this is where the God who sees, and she named that because this is where God had seen her. God saw her grief, saw her weeping, and visited her. So this is an important part of this too, because this also ties in with what had been seen with Ishmael. It also says there's some closeness there. For he was living in the Negev. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening, and he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, camels were coming. And she said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" And the servant said, "He is my master." Then she took her veil and covered herself. Oh, wait, I got to be prepared. I'm not yet married to him yet. This is my husband. I'm going to be veiled when he comes. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. So Isaac then lifts the veil. That's why we do that in weddings and things. We have the veil, the virgin, the bridegroom, married, lift the veil. Hopefully you like what's behind there. Especially in this day and age, see, Isaac had not seen her. He didn't know what she looked like, but he took her because this was the promised one, and he trusted in God and trusted in the blessing. Now, Abraham took another wife, so you got to figure here he's probably about 140 years old, right? Whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran and Jokshan and Medan and Midian and Ishbak and Shua, and Jokshan became the father of Sheba and Dedan, and the sons of Dedan were Asherim and Letushim and Leummim. And the sons of Midian were Ephah and Epher and Hanok and Abida and Eldaah. All these were the sons of Keturah. So here, these are important later, right? But none of them are the children of promise, but they do become places and peoples. But they're not the children of promise, right? Now Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. It's saying everything. They didn't receive all the stuff that Abraham had, but to the sons of his concubines, Abraham gave his gifts. Now we could look at this is a possibility, as Sarah is his wife. So Hagar and Keturah could be the concubines, or it could be their others. That's not clarified here, but that could be also pointing that way. Abraham gave gifts while he was still living and sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the land of the east. And these are all the years of Abraham's life that he lived, 175 years. And Abraham breathed his last and died in a ripe old age, an old man, and satisfied with life, and he was gathered to his people. Then his sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, the son of Zohar the Zittite, facing Mamre, the field which Abraham purchased from the sons of Heth. There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife, and it came about after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac, and Isaac lived in Beer Lahai Roi. Now, these are the records of the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian, Sarah's maid, bore to Abraham. And these are the names of the sons of Ishmael, by the names in order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, and Adbeel, and Mibsam, and Mishma, and Duma, and Massa, and Hadad, and Tema, Jetur, Naphesh, and Kedemah. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, by their villages, and by their camps, 12 princes according to their tribes. And these are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years, and he breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people. And they settled from Havilah to Shur, which is east of Egypt, as one goes toward Assyria. He settled in defiance of his relatives. So this is also telling us much of what we still see today within the Middle East. These are the Arabs. The descendants of Ishmael are the Arabian people. These are Arabs. This is where they come from. They're otherwise known as Ishmaelites. Now, these are the records of the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban, and the Aramean, to be his wife. And Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her. And she said, "If it is so, why then am I this way?" So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. And one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came forth red all over, like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. Now we would say there are many in this world still today that have the issue of much hair, the dog boy and the bearded ladies and things of that nature. We know them from old circus sideshows. And one would argue, yeah, there's probably some tie genetically to the line of Esau with them. And afterward his brother came forth with his hand, holding on to Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob, which also means to cheat. And Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. So they were married. They were together 20 years until they had their first. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a peaceful man living in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. So we see the conflict also being shown in there that is being set up too. You got the father's favorite and you got the mother's favorite. Jacob is the mama's boy. And when Jacob had cooked stew, Esau came in from the field and he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please let me have a swallow of that red stuff there, or that red stew there, for I am famished." Therefore his name is called Edom, being famished. But Jacob said, "First, sell me your birthright." And Esau said, "Behold, I am about to die. I am about to die of hunger." So he swore. So of what use then is the birthright to me? So if I'm dead, what good is my birthright? I'm starving to death here, brother. Feed me. Of course I'll give you this birthright. I'll give it to you openly and freely. So here we see he gives up his birthright so quickly. And Jacob said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So we went through all this. We're up through, and we'll start up with the 26th chapter next time. We went all the way. There was a lot there. And you think about everything that's going on, and you can also look in history today, modern events, and you can see where things have been set up in this area. This was an area of great conflict for early on, right? But see, God had still promised it. There was going to be blessing there, and this is where God is strongly at work, right? We see him at work throughout this whole process, and we give it over, and we say, "Here we are." And we move on as we go, and we see more that's going to go on throughout this process here. As we continue to work through the Word of God, we talk about the parts and listen to what's being said. Where is God speaking to us in our heart, and how is He drawing us deeper into the story as we see it unfold for us? And we look and we. All right, so when we look at all of this, we're going to see everything that God is at work in as we look through these prior 25 chapters. Now we're going to continue on in the 26th and see God's continued unfolding promise. So I hope you've enjoyed this opportunity, this time we've had here to study, and I look forward to the next time that we can come together. But always remember, each and every week, if you find this to be a helpful thing, share it, get it out there. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments, or if you can always email me too. But I hope you enjoy this. I enjoy being able to open up the Word of God, and hope that you are ever drawn closer in faith to God. And always remember that Jesus loves you, and so do I.